Matson Davis, for going on 20 years now, and he started with a small concept, and I just spoke to him 2 days ago. I mean, the guy just blew it up, and created such a fantastic brand that when I talked to him about his industry, the beer industry, he knows what's going on there with craft cider, and he knows what's going on with mead. And I got to tell you, there's definitely a buzz about the industry with mead and its potential. And for all the reasons we know about, local sustainability, ease of manufacturing, I think mead is going to explode, and especially in the category of piements, braggots, and sizers.
Yeah, the crossovers.
Because the crossovers, that's a good way to say that. Because it's so expensive, just making straight, good old classic mead, that I think that's the cost is prohibitive to scalable growth. But I think what you say when you say crossovers, those are things that I think gives everything a bit of honey, and you don't need it to be full blown honey as long as it's technically still a mead. A piement is a mead. Braggot is a mead. So I think mead is slowly but quickly going to have its day in the sun, and I don't really see it going the way of the wine cooler.
No.
Or Zima.
No, thank God.
I think mead is going to be a part of our life, much in the way in the 70s where Ernest and Julio Gallo were sort of laughed out of a lot of places, saying Americans don't drink wine.
Yeah.
Look at us now.
Mm-hmm.
And they said the same thing about the craft beer industry. It's people drink Coors Light and Budweiser and Miller Lite and Molson Golden. That's for you, Canada. So,
I don't think we even own Molson anymore.
Yeah, that's like saying Foster's is Australian. It's like, and they look at you like, we don't drink that crap.
And they think Anheuser-Busch bought out Labatt's.
Yeah, they did. Well, and I mean, mead, one of the things I learned in my digging through history to find more information about mead. I do living history demonstrations in various periods for, beverage making. But one of the things I noticed
is that code name for Renaissance Fair?
No, actually, I do living history where we are doing actual living history demonstrations of things that are period. I do Ren fairs, yes, and I have done Ren fairs. I haven't lately, but
no, I was sort of making a joke that
you're giving me a hard time. Yes,
like a fancy way to describe a Renaissance fair.
No, a Renaissance fair is
of living history.
Yeah, no, it's a history like performance. History like being
the SCA actually does that at the Ren fairs we have here.
Yeah, same here.
Oh.
We have SCA events that show up at some of the Ren fairs, and they do actual historical stuff. So, and that's not to say that there aren't historical Ren fairs. They are out there, but most of them go more for the entertainment because that's where the money is.
Well, yeah.
You gotta make a profit.
What does SCA stand for?
The Society for Creative Anachronism.
Yeah, and it's worldwide.
Yeah,
and that's SCA. I thought you said S as in Frank.
No, Society.
No, SCA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm familiar with that. I was
gonna say yeah, but I did living history stuff, and one of the things I noticed was that mead goes in cycles.
Oh.
It dropped.
Do tell.
Yeah. The most recent one being it dropped off the map in somewhere around 1500s. It started dropping off the map, partly because wine grapes suddenly spread outside of France and Italy to the rest of Europe. as people discovered how to cultivate them, and the trade routes became easier to get the grapes from one place to another. So suddenly wine started showing up that was affordable where it wasn't before, and when the New World, or rather the world on the other side of the Atlantic, was discovered, i.e. the West Indies, then we had sugar supplanted honey, and then so honey was like, well, why should we, ferment that when we got all this sugar here? So once that started coming in plenitude, then suddenly you were seeing more and more of things made with sugar, with grapes, with hops, with whatever, and honey became first the peasants' drink, and then even the peasants didn't drink it anymore. And so it kind of fell into obscurity in all but a few places. Poland never really lost the trend, never really lost their tradition, and Ethiopia kept tej going. It's like their national drink, just like mead is the national drink of Poland, and in a few other little bitty places, but mead almost completely disappeared. And then you saw it turn up here and there when they colonized the New World. So when they came to America, the Spanish and the English and the French and the Irish and the Scots and all of that, they actually revived mead a little bit, because we were kind of moving backwards from what was then, in Europe, a quote-unquote civilized culture, to a much more primitive one because of lack of resources from the more...
Lack of grapes.
Well, yeah, lack of grapes for one, until they realized that they grow even better here, and, and it took them a while to figure that out. Sir Walter Raleigh actually had... there's in one of his books for one of his expeditions, the captain of the ship managing the expedition had written this poem basically about these amazing huge drifts of grapes growing right down to the edge of the water, and they were huge, thick, super juicy grapes. And this was North Carolina, so this was our particular type of grape. And then they were like, woohoo, wine, but you go through Martha Washington's cookbook has mead recipes in it. Many of the women's receipt books of the times that have survived until present had mead recipes. Most of them tended to be people that were not right in the big cities, as big as, however big they were then. But you saw a lot more of it out in the more fringe areas and the less settled areas. And then as civilization spread from the coasts inland, you saw it disappear again. Yeah, it's really interesting to see. And now, then somewhere in the early 60s, Chaucer started making it and serving it at the local Ren fairs that were popping up in Southern California and Northern California. And they were... Okay, Tony says he's got a recipe from the Grover Cleveland presidency. And that's actually, there's several presidential mead recipes, which is really, I think, an interesting little thread. But it was just really interesting because it started coming back again in the 1960s, and then it's just been slowly growing again ever since. So I think we're really seeing, not to sound cliche, a mead renaissance.
Well, I would agree, and Mattson, he's CEO and president of Kona Brewing Company, has said as much. And, Mattson and I have been done a little bit of business together over the past many years, and helping him with his food program at Kona Brew Pub in Kona. But I can't even begin to tell you how excited he is about what I'm doing with Mead, and his level of interest seems to be, pretty high, and it's based off of how he thinks mead is really gonna be a contender in the marketplace.
Oh yeah, it's gonna take off.
So it's yay.
Yeah,
there are places where it has taken off.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we're going to start seeing it be, if not ubiquitous, then certainly something that most people have heard of.
Yeah, because part of the fun for me, when people come into the Hive Market and we have a honey tasting bar. You probably heard of Savannah Bee Company, and
oh yeah,
we're very similar to to them in the way we present our honey. We have a lot of other things in our store, but the first question we ask people is, "Have you ever had mead?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Well," and we don't put them in an uncomfortable spot where they don't know something. We say, "Well, mead is just fermented honey. That's the name of it. It's like a wine, and would you like to have a taste?" And then, we just share more throughout the tasting process. But it's part of my thinking was, is mead the right name for mead? And at this point, I've stopped asking my questions and doubting the brand. Is Mead brandable? And I think it is. I think it most definitely is. There's a lot of history there. There's a great story about the etymology of the word. So I'm all for keeping Mead's name Mead, because you hear sort of people in the industry, and out of the industry, questioning. You can't even pronounce it, and because I walk around in a chef's coat 99.9% of my life, and a year ago when people say, "Well, what are you doing there on the corner, Greg?" and I said, I'm opening a taproom. We're going to sell mead and things like that. And they're like, "Meat?"
Yeah.
No, mead, not meat. It's so it's an enunciation thing for me, and that is pronouncing it in a way and following up the word with it's like a wine made from honey. It's fermented honey. It's called mead. And so I've learned to enunciate the word a lot better. So I made a list I'd like to share with you. If you don't mind, I could rattle through this list of 20 or so takes on mead names I'm working with.
Sure.
And these are all names of meads, styles of meads, or labels on certain types of meads. So some of them you might have heard before, some of them you might not have heard, but I'm just going to roll through and listen to you giggle, and and then if you have any questions about it, I'll tell you. But one of the meads we're working on, because we are in the land of Game of Thrones, because George R. R. Martin actually lives here in Santa Fe. He also has a Tesla, and we host Tesla club meetings, so we get to see George. So some of this stems from that. But anyway, some of the meads I'm working on now, and the names of them are Ragnar's Wrath, Storm the Castle, but that's already taken because that's a brand of another company. But one of the things we have with TTB labeling is putting an alcohol ABV on the mead, like what's the percent. And there's a certain percentage that you can max out at before it's no longer considered mead. And people always gravitate towards the high alcohol stuff for some reason.
I don't know why.
But we have a brand of mead called Mead Limit, and it's
I like that.
Shaped like a speed limit. I already told you about Falcon Punch. Better Mead Than You. Meeting of Life. Medieval, we all know that one. Leave Mead Alone. That's a purist, single, very plain mead. She Loves Mead Not. What About Mead? Here's one that I'm having fun with, and that's Meteor Shower.
Ooh, I like that.
And then Arizona, if you're going through Arizona, you might go through a little town called Meteor Crater.
Yeah.
That's where a big